Yeah, well, brutal. All right, Christina. Christina says brutal, especially if you're the owner and not the groomer. Yes, but groomers, I don't know. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Groomers have to put up with a lot. They're bit by dogs, jumping on them, barking at them, those crying. Beth, the howling and crying of the dog that hates the blow dryer and thinks that you're killing them and torturing them. That noise is like right next to that groomer's head. The groomers have a pretty tough job, but it is definitely hard to manage a team of groomers too and all the personalities. But that's what we're going to be talking tonight about, is just how to have a successful grooming salon. And as the training that I put in the Facebook group suggested, that this is the training that we're going to teach you how to boss your grooming salon. So I just want to say thank you for everybody tuning in. I'm sure more people are going to be jumping on live. And if you have questions at all while you're on live with us, you can put them in the chat. We're excited to have you here with us. And if you're watching the replay of this in the club portal, you can always bring your questions back to the Facebook group where the community lives, and let everybody know that you just watched the Posture Grooming Biz training with Beth, and we'll be happy to answer your questions then. So let me introduce you to Beth. Beth, I know I'm talking a lot right now, but I gotta read your bio, because your bio is like so impressive. I know you're gonna tell us the history. I know you're gonna tell us the history and the background of your business, but let me share with everybody, in case they didn't get a chance to see it when I posted it, is that Beth Paynter Magnetti is the owner of Planet Poodle, and she started in the grooming. Beth started in the grooming industry at the young age of 21, when she had the opportunity to buy her first salon from the owner who she was working for. They needed to retire, and that they had a mini poodle breeder and handler business, and so they were ready to retire. I would actually really love to, at some point tonight, hopefully, hear the story about that the owner was willing to sell it to you, or wanted to sell it to you, because I think so many times people are nervous to sell to their employees. So maybe we'll touch on that tonight, but that's how you started. And then since that time, you opened 3 more locations, 3 more salons, or 3 total, 3 successful salons, and you showed poodles yourself to championship titles in the breed ring, and you were on 2-time the U.S. Groom Team, and you won the most prestigious award, which is the International Groomer of the Year in 1992. That's mega. I feel like that's mega. And you also operate a boarding facility out of your house, and you have a bunch of kids.
Just 2.
Yeah, 2 kids still. I don't have any, so I'm like, I don't know. I feel like 2 is a lot. And then for the past few years, you've been on this wonderful journey of growing your business and taking your business to the next level. So your current situation, just so everybody knows, your current situation, well, you've been in this now for, I think, 31 years. Your current situation is you're ready to expand Planet Poodle. You're merging a couple of the businesses, but you're going to expand. You're completely rebranding. You're changing your model slightly. A lot of growth has happened for you as a leader and for your business. And that is why you are here today with the Pet Boss Club, because when I met you, I was like, you're amazing. You've gotta come and meet our community. So I'm gonna shut up at this point and at least let you share with us what your background is and why you're here today.
Well, you did a great job of sharing most of my background, but I'll add to some of that. But I'm super excited to be here today. And I promise for you non-groomers and your pet sitters that there is going to be some value in this journey, because really it can be applied to anything. There's so many things that I've learned, and so many things that any one of you can take and really make great use out of. So I'm super excited, because you guys rock already just being part of this community. So that's really exciting. And there was nothing like this. When I started, there was nothing like this. And so to see 2 things that I really love, to see communities like yours and memberships like yours cropping up is huge. And to see the people that are joining them is so impressive, because I know that these people want what I'm doing or variations of it, and they're here because they want to be the best they can be and because they want to grow their businesses, and that's just so cool. So I love that. So I will start with just adding a little bit. Yes, I was 21. I had started actually in high school. I worked for a kennel. And I probably like stunk through high school. Like, it was this puppy mill kennel, and the bus, we were on split sessions, and the bus would pick me up for afternoon sessions, and I would like change my clothes, but I really needed a shower. And, but I loved it. It was really horrible, but great at the same time. And I knew for many years that being in dogs and the pet world was what I wanted. And I just didn't know exactly where I was going to land. Originally, it was veterinary medicine, and that did not work for me. It was like 2 weeks, and I was like, no, I can't do this. So I worked at the standard poodle puppy mill basically through high school. Then I worked for various breeders, started working at the shop that I now own for this guy who showed poodles and was a handler and bred mini poodles and was super talented. And at that point, I was already on this journey to just be an amazing groomer. I wanted to be as good as I could possibly get. I was awestruck with poodles. I just wanted to know everything about poodles and how to do poodles. So when I started working for Alan, it was a dream job, and it was a little crazy, but it was great. It was just a small little tiny place, and he had owned it for like 20 years, and he was really young. He was only like 40, but he just wanted to work for me. And so basically that's what happened. I bought the shop. And
he was ready to retire, but he just stayed on the team and helped you.
He did. He was ready to retire, but he stayed on.
I'm done being the boss.
I bought the shop. He bought a Beamer. He cut down to 3 days a week, and he had a condo in Florida, and he was just loving life. So life was good. So I had definitely no fear. You know, I just jumped into it at that age and time. And my biggest focus at that time was competing and getting better to go for groom team. So for, I would say 5-6 years, that really was my focus. And I would work all week. I would go to breeders on the weekends, and I would just be honing my skill, you know, over and over for these different breeds. And then probably when I was about 24, I started competing on the circuit. So for those of you who are not familiar, there's a United States groom team competition circuit, and it happens all over the country.
Yeah, talk briefly about that. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, so really all over the world, because almost many countries have groom teams. Okay. So a lot of the competitions happen in the United States. So really at this point, I would say every 6 to 8 weeks, maybe sometimes more often, there's a competition somewhere. And a lot of them are in conjunction with, like, Super Zoo had a grooming competition. And so a lot of the pet things, some of them are all by themselves, some of them are in conjunction with bigger events. But it is a crazy circuit. So imagine having, 5 or 6 dogs that you're going to groom. They're either your own, so now you have 100 dogs at your house that you're either conditioning for grooming competitions, or they're client dogs that you're borrowing. And every 4 to 6 weeks, you're traveling somewhere in the country to groom these dogs for a contest.
And how long?
And I did that for at least like 6 years.
Wow.
Just really full time going, and it's fabulous. It's so much work. I really admire everybody today that's doing it. But it was amazing. It was definitely my life for a long time. And so I made the first team that I made was in 92. And at that point, it was the top 6 groomers. So what happens is you compete, and then your wins tabulate points. And then at the end of the year, it's really like a 2-year circuit. At the end of that time, then they add up the points and the top members. Now it's 10 members. When I was doing it, it was 6. So the top 6 members make it. And then you compete. We competed in England for the first year. So of course you're borrowing dogs there. So that's really a disadvantage. So, went to England, borrowed dogs, won the top. That was amazing. International Groomer of the Year. And then I did it again next year, but I actually gave my position to somebody because they had me competing for our team in an area that I really, in hand stripping, and I'm really not a competition groomer in that area. So I gave my position to the alternate person who kills hand stripping, Sally Hawks, and she went and she won for our team. So it was okay in Scotland. So it was great. So I did that. Then after I kind of felt like, okay, I did this, I want to do something else. I started showing dogs, and I got into the breed ring, and I did that for probably another 5-6 years. And then I got married and started a family, and I was still showing. And my older son now, who was 11 months old, I'll never forget, sitting at the show and kind of observing him with the dogs, and the dogs would kiss him and he'd be like, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? He doesn't like dogs. How could this be?
Yeah.
And it was okay. And he does like dogs, but not the way I like dogs. And it was okay. So I didn't want to be in that world right at that moment. I still had my shops. I loved being at my shops. So I kind of was just a mom and a business owner for probably the next 6 years after that. When my kids started getting a little bit older, I definitely felt this need to do, I wanted something more. I kept saying to myself, why is it that I have successful businesses, but I can get here? Why can't I get there? I want to get there. So I started just researching and searching and dabbling in everything I could possibly think of to come to the conclusion that I can't get here because I don't know how.
Right.
My genius is grooming.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Christina's like, that's me. It's like so many of us, no matter what, again, this applies, like you said, to no matter what business you're in, we get into it for a certain passion or a certain desire. And then because people love their pets and everything starts to grow, and if you're running a good business, it's like as my business mentor always says, she's like, a new level, a new devil. It's like every time you move up, you're like, well, but I don't know what I'm doing. So now we're going to, got to figure this out.
And that's exactly, I did not know what I was doing. There's no way I was getting to here because there's no way I knew how to do that. So I continued my search, and I started finding some consulting companies. The first one I worked with for about 10 months and took some really good things from them, but they were really more of a corporate model, and it just wasn't fitting. We are really home style, we're not cookie cutter corporate, franchise type of business. So we knew that really wasn't the direction we wanted to go. And then I found my next resource, and actually a really good book that I recommend called wiwth. So I definitely recommend that for everybody, because that was one of my first assignments was to read wiwth, and it would apply to everybody here, especially everyone who's like, oh, the employee thing, or oh, I want to get bigger, and it's so frustrating, especially in the grooming world. You'll love wiwth. So I read wiwth, and then my next assignment was I needed to write a strategic vision, and that vision needed to be from the perspective of myself, my client, my employees, how it looked, how it felt, how it smelled, my perfect vision of what I wanted for a business. And it was great. And it took me about 4 months.
Yeah, no, it's like rewriting your business plan, but instead of what a typical business plan would be known for, you're coming at it from these different lenses and angles, and I love that, and I'm glad you took the time to do that. And actually, I just want to reference really quick, just since it is the Pet Boss Club, and we have a resource for you inside our membership portal. When you log into the membership portal and you get to the homepage, there's an area that's called Foundations. And now I guess if you're watching this replay later and we've redone our whole website, because that's what we're going to do, because there's a new software coming out soon. But Currently, if you go into the foundations area, there at the top, there's I do a video about your vision a little bit. There's a little bit there, and then there's the Simon Sinek video about your why, and then there's also a download that's kind of like I'm blanking on it right now, but it is shoot, I can't think of the name, but it's like a one pager business plan. It has like all these quadrants on one page, and you can like write out all the different areas. I'm gonna look it up. I'll look it up now and mention it later. I'm like blanking completely, but it's right there at the top. So it helps you like, and there's instructions. It helps you lay it all out of a basic business plan. But then the vision piece is really, really, you almost have to do that vision work and the why work way before you actually make the strategic business plan for it.
Right? Yes, I agree. And the vision, I can't recommend the vision enough. Everyone start writing your vision, because anytime you get distracted, and make it crazy, make it what you would think, oh, that'll never happen. If that's what you want, write your vision on however wild you want it to be, however simple you want it to be. Because anytime you start getting in a bad place or you start getting off track, you have that vision to go back to remind you of why you're doing, what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that vision was definitely life-changing for me. Mm-hmm. And the next life-changing part was that I had to launch this vision to my entire staff in a very strategic manner. It had to be really specific. So I had to have them in person. And now at the time I have 3 shops. It's like the first week in December. So it's crazy time. So I'm like, how am I going to get everybody all together?
Yeah.
This is
and this is only 2 years ago. You were saying
2 years ago.
2 years ago. So you'd already been in business for 31 years.
Yes.
So what I love about this as well is that no matter how long we've all been in business, you still have to revisit, this kind of stuff, your vision.
Yes.
And then, that's why Christina's on now too. She's like, she had to revisit the vision of her pricing and which we'll talk about in a little bit too, but it's those challenging conversations and getting the buy-in. So you're saying that when you had to know what you were going to do, and then you had to get the team together. You wanted to make it in person. All right, I'll let you continue. I'll stop.
It's fine. So I decided to do 3 separate launches because, they were busy, and we were going to just like close shop for like an hour. So I had extra people up front, kind of manning whatever was going on up there, shut the phones, put them on voicemail, whatever. I had to have copies of all of my vision, which I'll be glad. I'll even share it, with you guys if they want an idea of what it's like. I'll be glad to email to you.
Yeah, send me an email with it.
Yeah. And I had to have copies. I had to have highlighters, and they all had to come and sit because it's story format. So I had to read them the story, and then I had to ask each one of them who they were, where they fit, and what stood out to them about the story. So it was so interesting. And I actually love to think back now because I can almost remember every single person's response. And every person that was on fire about the vision, because I was on fire about it, even though it kind of felt a little weird, and some of them were like, some of them knew what I was doing, but some of them were like, what's happening right now? What's going on?
Why am I not
what's happening? She's not dressed she's dressed a little nicer than she, what's happening here? So every one of them that was on fire about the vision is still with me today and still on fire.
Right.
Anyone who was even remotely weird about the vision is no longer there.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's really good.
And I would like to just reiterate this because again, this was originally when we said that this training we were bringing you on, we were going to talk about pricing and running a grooming salon.
And we are
guys. We are. But this is what Beth and I also believe is so much more important. Before you can get a well-oiled business in general, period, it comes from the top down. And you have to know who you are. You have to know where you want to go. You have to know how you're going to get there. who's going to be there with you, right? Like telling them what part do they play. And no matter what you're trying to convey in your company, it could be what she's talking about is she had a vision. It could even be, you could use this same concept that she's talking about for company culture. And when you are having gossip happening in your business, if you're having anyone that's not motivated, sometimes when you're not even motivated yourself, like just doing this work, like remotivates you, as you mentioned, even like going back and looking at it. But there were times, and what you're saying now about you with your groomers in this position, I had the same thing. I had to go through, we had way too much gossip. Not gossip, for me, it was gossip to each other when like the person they're talking to can't fix your problem. So if you're really upset with the thing that you can't fix, then you need to go talk to the person that can fix it for you. But we had to institute core values and an employee pledge. Right. And so also in the club's portal are our core values and the employee pledge that you can swipe or make your own. But what I love what you're trying to say here is that before you can worry about pricing or worry about how you're going to pay people or worry about all those like the little logistics of it, like you got to get clear on like who's with you and who's not with you, right?
Yes, absolutely. So at the time, I didn't know. It was just, I knew that some people were weird and I kind of probably I overlooked a lot of it. I have like 25 people that work for me, so I overlooked a lot of that. And I just kind of went with it, and most of the enough people were excited. So then, we get into the holidays, time goes, and I'm still working on this vision, working on behind the scene things, still looking for what it is I'm looking for, knowing I'm just working towards getting where I need to go. And it was about 4 months later where I had a groomer out on injury. I had one on vacation. I had one that had a funeral or something, and I get a call from one of my main groomers who was competing on this grooming contest circuit, who we were all mentoring, and she had been with me for like 14 years, to tell me that was her last day. No notice, no nothing. So at first I was a little surprised. I was very surprised, but it was okay because this groomer was prickly. She wasn't warm and fluffy. And I always had to worry about who I was putting with her little posse staff. It was definitely a problem. And she was totally not into the vision. Her response was like, so you're going to sell dog food? I'm like, I think that was like 2 words in the vision. Like she was checked out before it even happened. The following week, we quickly found out that they had tapped into the database, called every client, and opened a mile away. So I have to get back in there and not be like one person. I've got to game face, be 3 or 4 people, and
you've got to act cool for everybody else who's watching about how you're going to react to all this.
And I noticed that my staff is kind of on the outskirts, kind of like, wow, what's going to happen here? How is she going to handle this? And to add salt to the wound, 2 of my employees, main employees, another groomer and a prep person, were like her besties. So they're coming to work and they're leaving at night, going to help her decorate her shop. So a week later, I had to make the executive decision.
So just to clarify, they didn't leave you. They were working for you, but helping at night with the other groomer who left at her shop.
Yes.
And so you had to decide how you were going to deal with this.
Yes. Yeah. So I quickly decided, no way. And this, I think that was huge for the rest of my staff, because even though a lot of them were friends, I was like, this is a complete conflict of interest and the trust is completely broken. It's gone. So I made that decision that those 2 could not stay. And then we just had to regroup. We did the best. And so one great thing was that I was so tired because I was working like 10 to 12 hours a day, just grooming. But there was a piece of me that was totally panicking because there were customers that were leaving. The one store, she pretty much ran. So the customers didn't know me the way they do in the other stores. So I called a person that was helping me, who helped me write my vision. And I asked him if I should be more proactive. And I think this is a really important message for everybody. I said, should I call my clients? And he said, no. And I was like, really? Why? And he said, just trust me. If they can't see through this, you don't want them. And I was like, oh, do I not want them? It was like ka-ching, ka-ching, another one's canceling, another one. He said, trust me, for every one that you lose, you'll gain 3. And I was like, what? How is that going to happen? I don't have any big advertising campaign. He said, just trust me. So that was in May of 2 years ago, like this past May. And actually, no, just like a little over a year ago. And in June, the phone started ringing crazy. New customer, new customer, new customer. We regroup, we get ourselves together. And by the end of last year, we lost 60 and I had 400 new customers.
Wow.
So it's just like, yes, just believe. Like I just trusted and I believed and I kept putting one foot in front of the other and I kept staying true to my vision. So we had been through a lot, like our staff had really been through a lot, but the interesting part of that and the vision again and why it's so important is because it created a very specific culture within my shop of now, because it affected every employee. Every employee was affected by either having a client taken away from them, that they lied to them, and they didn't groom the dog, this person groomed the dog, or they were friends with this person and they felt betrayed, or they were affected in some way. And once we cleared that air, everyone changed and they were not willing to ever go back there again. And now it's so awesome to watch some who were really young girls, now they're maybe in their middle 20s, they were early 20s, now they're in their early 30s now. And they protect our culture in such a great way now. And that is another really important thing and so hard to achieve because for all these years, I never had that the culture that I wanted with my employees, where this is what we do. Now we have, not only do we have our vision, we have a creed. It's basically like, this is what we do here, and this is what we don't do here. And we give that as soon as somebody's hired, like we lift each other up, we have fun, we don't talk smack about anybody. We, it's worded better than that, but that's basically what it is. Like we don't gossip. We put our phones away. We have this is what we do, and this is what we don't do. And the staff loves it. There's clarity there, and it is very rare. And I love it when new people come in and they're like, wow, it feels so good to be here. We've never experienced this in any other grooming, environment. And that means the world to me. So the vision starts a journey for everybody to really bring clarity. The next important step was you had mentioned your why. You definitely need to, and that's not easy. Your why isn't, well, I just like dogs. You really need to dig deep with your why. And then once you have that clear, you have to be really clear on who you're going to serve. Just because you're a dog groomer doesn't mean you have to serve every dog or every client or every type of dog or every dog that comes twice a year. You have the right to decide who you want to serve and be really clear on that. And once you get all those mental things instilled and you share it with your staff and it becomes your culture and your team is excited about it, then you could make leaps in your pricing adjustments, how you're going to show up for your community, building your community. And that's where we're at right now. So right now we've merged 2 of our locations. We're building out a 4,700 square foot facility that's going to have grooming, training, a boutique, and a coffee shop. So we are super excited. We are completely rebranding, and that's really a whole subject for another time, because branding, we can talk for a few hours about branding. It is something, a whole world that I never realized. The brand and a business are completely separate. We're rebranding, we're renaming. So our new name is going to be Floof. It's very millennial focused. Our tagline is a canine culture. And we are a community of canine enthusiasts that geek out on everything dog. And that's who we are, and that's what we do. And our focus of we're so great, we're wonderful, that's why people come to us, because we're award-winning grooming. My entire staff is competition level groomers. They're all amazing, okay? They're really, really talented. And I went to them and I said, our focus changes. Now, the client is the hero, and this is why it's so important on who you want to serve, because you don't want that person who's prickly to be the hero, okay? So the client is the hero, and we're just simply the guides on their journey of pet ownership and pet grooming. And the fact that we're really good at what we do is just a bonus. And the changes and what's happening to all of us and what's happening with our volume, and it's amazing. So that's where we're at, and it's really exciting time.
It is. It's really going to be exciting to follow your new journey. You're starting with that new branding and the new location.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Congratulations. And what I also love is that you still, after 31 years, you're so excited. You're so lit up about what you're working on, but I'm sure it wasn't always that way. And even day to day, I'm sure it's not that way. But right now, I met you about less than a month ago, and you were so excited then, and I just still see the enthusiasm now. And so it'll be really fun to see what you accomplish. But would you say that journey and that shift in you was when you started to get support and you were part of programs like our club or working one-on-one with people? Was that the shift, or what was that? Had you already been doing that before? Like, what was
just a little bit? I think the vision was the biggest step forward, and I still wasn't sure what I needed after the vision. I still was looking for what is it, and then so many things came into play. The branding and so many things. But the vision was the catalyst of the change. And it was like the epiphany because it keeps me grounded, and it keeps my whole staff grounded and excited. And it keeps us knowing exactly what we're working towards.
All right. So on the working towards. Yes, on the working towards. How do you structure it? I might be jumping ahead for you. I know you've got a little flow there.
No, go ahead.
We've talked about your why. We know you've got an amazing company culture, and it comes from the team environment. We know that your client is your hero. It's less about the ego of the groomer and more about how can we serve our clients on their pet parent journey. And now let's get to like the structure of that team. What positions do you have inside your grooming salon, and how do they all work together?
Okay, so we have bathers, we have prep people. So the bathers are responsible for washing, turboing. We use force dryers on everything. It's very rare that we cage, and we deal with a lot of hair. So it's very rare that we shave something down. So bathing, force drying, if they're at the level to brushing, but usually that's the prep work. We get them to that level. And then the prep people will brush out. They'll do all prep work, sanitaries, nails, all that. And we use a lot of snap-on combs. The prep people will do that. And basically
so for they use what kind of combs?
We use a lot of snap-on combs.
Snap-on combs, okay.
Yep, so the prep people, it's like a larger blade, basically, and it leaves the dogs longer.
Got it. So these preppers are also shaving, is what I would think.
They're totally prepping the dog and handing it on the groomer's table, and then all the stylist does is finish the dog.
Finish it. Like,
And the reason,
stuff.
Okay. Yeah, they scissor it and they finish it. And the reason I do that is because grooming is really hard and it's so physical. And when somebody's doing it all by themselves, you know, in 10 or 15 years, if you started really young, in 10 or 15 years, you're starting to hurt. And I figured this is the greatest way. And when you find somebody that's talented, why do you want to waste their time washing dogs? You know, so I'm using, and we train people all the time. So I utilize everybody's talents in the place where they should be, and it creates longevity, and it creates a true career that they're going to be able to do, until they're, you know, 55, 60 years old or older, you know, without being in pain every day and falling apart physically.
So if somebody had right now, if they just, because I know there's some watching that maybe only have one groomer right now, and maybe their groomer is even maybe 4 weeks booked out, but they only have one tub, because this is my scenario right now. I mean, I only have one tub, I have one table, I don't have the space to add more, but we could get a bathing assistant in, or we do have a bathing assistant some of the times, but what's that first step for someone who has a groomer, who's doing all that work? Is it to bring in somebody who does bathing and prep, or just the bather first? Like, how do we transition from?
Yeah, I would say just a part-time bather first.
Okay.
So even if you had a situation where you only had one tub and one table for the groomer, and there was no other space, okay, bring in that bather and let them wash that dog and turbo the dog. A lot of that could be done in the tub, and then do all those dogs for that groomer, because then that groomer is going to be able to add dogs, you know, or now you can add more bath dogs. You know, I call them the easy button dogs, because that's what I'm sure we're going to get into next, is the pay structure and how you could make a profit when the whole grooming pay structure is really broken, because everybody, I mean, I'm sure all of them have been on these crazy groomer Facebook pages where, you know, God forbid somebody gets a good offer and it's not 50 or 60%. And then 300 people are chiming in, oh, don't take it, it's horrible. Oh my goodness. Like, but wait, it has benefits. Oh, nope, but don't take it. You should be getting 70%. And so the model's broken of what people think they're supposed to get. And it's very hard for a grooming business to sustain itself and to remain profitable. So my focus is those easy button dogs, which I do not pay out 50% for a lab and any short-haired dogs. And I don't pay out 50% for even easy trims like Goldens and double-coated dogs. They're not 50%, because if you do them properly, unless they're the twice a year, whether they need it or not dogs, if they're coming regularly, they're less time consuming, and your less talented people can learn to do them. So that's the way I start to climb. So if somebody just had space, I would have them start with a bather, and then you can add bath dogs, and you can add to your volume. That groomer's day can go from 6 dogs to 8 dogs comfortably.
I love it. Yeah, Teresa suggested a book here in the comments. I just shared with everybody. Yeah, so here's another example of, I guess, when you've got the one solo groomer, or sometimes even if it's 2 groomers, and you're introducing this bather concept as new. So Tracy says she's had a groomer that refused to use the bather because she wanted to create the finished look from start to finish. And I think even when, you know, I've had that too, when you try to share, like when clients, because I've even thought about it, we could have a groomer come in on the 2 days that our other groomer's off. But when I've done that before is that then a client comes when it's convenient for them, and then the groomers get upset that the other groomer's doing it, and they're not going to be used to like the quality, like they don't trust that groomer is going to give them the level of quality that they would give the client. How do you respond to that?
So I'm not going to, sometimes it's really difficult because not all bathers are great, and it does take time, you know, to train them. But once our groomers realize the benefits, that, okay, it's a give and take. We kind of have this ladder of, you know, the prep people train the bathers, the groomers train the prep people, and it's their give back. Everyone kind of started that way. And a lot of it has to do with the quality of the work that we do. So we want to keep that always. It's always a top priority. So it is difficult, but the groomers have to understand what's in it for them longevity. And maybe I would recommend a few things. Put it on paper so that they could see, okay, I understand you want your dogs to be perfect, but what would the value, and ask the groomer, what would the value of that be if this bather could replicate that? And how do we achieve that? And that's the way we do it. It's how do we achieve training that bather to give us what we need so that we can do it. We always tell the bathers, you have the most important job, because if those dogs aren't clean and if they're not dried straight, then the stylist can't do what they do best. And it won't be the same quality. So that can be frustrating, but there are definitely ways, and I will definitely be up for, I want to be available, for your people that are really determined to make this work. Okay. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we can add another training that could.
Yeah, because there's a lot of ways, and I'll start when we're done tonight. I'll start really formulating some really powerful ideas for them, because the bottom line is, if you don't do it that way, other than adding a groomer, so what's your next option is to add a part-time groomer, and then maybe that groomer's only getting 2 dogs a day, or 2 dogs every, it's complicated. It's much easier, in my opinion, to add your lower people and then keep the longevity. And believe me, once that person starts getting and not having to be back there, that's the hardest job. I call it back in the muck. Once they don't have to be back in the muck and the hair and the turbos and the noise, they enjoy that.
Yeah, and I'm even wanting. So Tracy's even here saying that she's got 4 groomers, right? And so, but they need at least a part-time bather, but they're all kind of back and forth on the opinions of it. But what you're saying is, you almost don't even call in your shop. You're not even calling them the groomer. It's you've got the bather, the prepper, the stylist. Yes. And so I'm wondering, Tracy, or for any of you guys, if you go back to your grooming team and you said, these are the new positions, which one do you want? Because some of them may go, I'm a groomer and I don't really want to be the stylist. I love the prep work, right? They might really love it. And then that's where they go. I mean, you never know. So that could be interesting to tap into saying, this is how we're going to restructure it. And I wonder where they want to go. Okay. So we've talked about the different positions. We've talked about, actually one of the things I want to touch on, because we already mentioned it, so I just want to bring it back up in full circle to that question about what do you do when you've got a groomer who's saying, I can't, the quality will be down, or I want to work on that dog from start to finish. Not only showing them the value, like you said, but it comes back to the team. It comes back to we're a team.
Yes.
And if you're going to stay, if you want to stay in this environment, we need to start working like a team together, because we're going to be here to support each other. Something might happen to you in your life and you've got to take some time off, and you need to know that the other groomer that's here, or the bather, or anyone here is going to got your back. They've got your back and they're ready to step in and help out. So it's really coming back to what's the core values, what's the vision of the company, and ultimately guys too, because I know Christina was struggling with this, having that pricing conversation with her company and getting some pushback now, is that you guys are the owners of your business and you can build whatever you want to build. And the vision that you want is what Beth has already said here. The road to getting there is not always just because you dreamed it doesn't mean it's going to be a dream getting there. Right. So it's the process, and you figuring out the best way for you to get there to achieve your dream. And not everyone's going to come on that road with you.
I also created a success path for my team, and I clarified what each job and I described. So, this is what a bather does. This is what the bather starts at. This is how long the bather should be in this position, doing this many dogs. and this is what we're working up to. And then this is what they need to do to work their way into the prep position. Okay, well, what's in it for me for the prep position? Well, then the prep position is going to include these tasks, and there's going to be a little increase in salary, in the prep position. And I made that really clear because it became a real career when there was a job path, and there was, well, wow, if I start here, I could actually get over here. I also give each level, so my prep people get a percentage, an extra percentage for training the bather. And my groomer gets an extra percentage for kind of being the one that's responsible for the quality. So at the end of the day, before that dog leaves, if they don't fully trust that prep person to check, even if it's a bath dog, if they're not to that level, the groomer checks it to make sure, and they get a small percentage of that. And once you map out what that really looks like and how their day can look financially and what they have to look forward to, that it's with everything. It's with your customers if you're changing your pricing. It's with your employees if you're changing your model. Build your case. Build your case as to why you're doing what you're doing. And prove to them. Put it in, don't just say, well, this is what we're going to do because it sounds good. Build your case and put it in writing and make it really exciting for them. And make it worth it for them, because it will be worth it when you build your case. And then present it to them and then start from there. But that's why you start with the vision, and that vision is your grounding and your foundation so that everybody can, you present your vision. Hey, this is what we're doing. And even if it's a simple vision, even if you say, well, wow, I really love my shop right now. And the only thing that's kind of really making me crazy is the grooming department or the groomers. Well, then just write your shop and your vision of how the harmony now in the grooming department is working beautifully, and write everything that you want to do in that grooming department and present it to your staff. Mm-hmm. And then you have that grounding. But my people love the job path because they could see really clearly, wow, I'm moving up. It's like they're moving up the corporate ladder. And they, and some of them like to stay. Like you said, some of them don't want to be stylists. Some of them really kick butt at those double-coated dogs, and they're happy just doing golden type dogs all day long. Mm-hmm. And that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. I'm taking vigorous notes. So I know our community would love to have you come back and talk more about this. Okay.
Who is the one that's, were they afraid of the pricing? They want to change their pricing. Somebody I know asked a question. We talked about it a little bit earlier.
Oh, Chris, so a lot of, I think it comes down to the industry standard has always been, from way back when was, 50%. The groomer gets 50%, the shop owner gets 50%. Well, now with price increases for having a brick and mortar business, the rents are outrageous in some areas. You've got now all these other fees associated with running your business, like all the social media subscriptions and all the things you need to pay for and need help with, and business insurance going up and workers' comp going up, minimum wage, all the criteria. And I think that 50% was previously when a groomer was originally an independent contractor and would come with their own workers' comp, and they came with all their own supplies. I think that's probably where it started. I mean, I don't know, you would probably know better than me, but I think that's where it started. And now they legally can't be independent contractors. They need to be employees. And so,
right.
So because they're employees now, they really shouldn't be getting that 50%. It should be less because they're not coming with all the other expenses they would have covered previously. So what Christina did is, I think she could tell us in the chat, what I think she did is she rearranged the pay structure by dropping, I think, some of the fee, like their percentage, but overall the way she was going to schedule it and get the team on board, they ultimately were going to make more money. And which I think she laid out to them, but then it's always those people who, after the meeting's over,
they're afraid.
It goes the same way whenever any of us have a team meeting and we force them all to be there, and then the next day someone's like, that was a waste, like to somebody, or to somebody who like didn't come to the meeting. They're like, what happened in the meeting last night? And they're like, that was stupid. You didn't really even need to be there. Like when anyone says that, it just ruins the whole dynamic of the day. And so I think then just Christina was feeling a little discouraged, a little bit after that. Did she, like, questioning of was this the right move? Because now there's a little bit of chatter happening on in the company. So how do I handle this? So that was kind of it. So you want to touch on that? And I'd love to actually talk about a little bit more of the math of the pay structure of what you're doing.
Okay. So I can totally relate to that because I've been in that situation many times. You present something new, you're excited about it, and then you've got your Debbie Downers in there that are just and then it's like this virus that it just attacks everybody. And then everyone starts second guessing. And again, I'm going to say it again. There's your vision and there's your creed and there's this is what we do here. This is what we don't do. And that's your culture. Mm-hmm. So get those solid first, because if your culture is we solve problems, we don't make them. And if there's any problem, if anyone has a problem, it's directed to whatever, and there's no gossip, then it deters some of that. It's not going to totally end it, but it deters it. But I do have 50% for some of my high-end, groomers I'll pay up, but they don't do the whole job. So if they were to do the dog from start to finish, okay, they would get 50%. But I have these competition amazing groomers that are doing finish work for 30% because the dog's being plopped on their table and it's only taking them a half an hour or 45 minutes, whatever, to finish the dog. So they all are over that. Now I'm taking that additional percentage, and of course I have to pay out my prepper and my bather, but I only pay out 25% for short-haired dogs, and I only pay out 35% for double-coated, like little trim dogs or neaten-ups or things like that. So if you were to take those percentages, it makes it, even though the groomers are making 50 or they think they're making 50, it all balances because I have these, short-haired and the easy button dogs that are less percentage. Mm-hmm. So my total payout is less than 50%.
Mm-hmm. And then were you able to fill, like if I think about if you again had the one groomer, you're bringing on the point would be you would drop this a little bit because you're bringing on this bather, and then you can book more appointments. So
exactly.
If the phone is not ringing and you don't have the business yet, the groomer may actually not be making more money if you can't fill the schedule.
Yes, so, and that goes into, how are you going to, what is the plan to do that and, to make more business. And, one of the things that I'm learning is that you're not seeing a whole lot of businesses doing, like, what does your community love about you? Your community loves the fact that they could jump on here now and they could all talk with each other and everyone can brainstorm and have great ideas. But there's lots of communities happening in social media now mm-hmm. that I think the people that are going to really start winning at this game are going to start build your community of raving fans and show up for them and lean into them and then see what happens. Because think about it. What groomers do that? What groomers have raving fans and really show up for them? Most of them, it's the same thing over and over. Encourage, for the people that don't groom, encourage their groomers to really start really getting to know their clients and really, really make them a raving fan. And for the ones that aren't, just get to a point where you don't have to make them make you miserable anymore. Like right. That's where be clear on who you're serving. And if you don't want to serve the miserable people, get yourself to a point where you don't have to serve the miserable people anymore.
That's right.
And really enjoy what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one toxic employee that you're putting up with and tolerating for however long because you just feel like you're not going to find a groomer that you want. That's just small thinking, move them out of the shop, let them leave on their own or whatever needs to happen, because eventually you will find the right groomer, and the time you have without that toxic energy or walking on eggshells around that person is better spent without even bringing that revenue in at the time.
Yes.
So, okay. So we have a question here that she's paying her groomers 50%. She's only been open for 7 months, she's been open a little longer than that, but just doing grooming for 7 months, and she's already into hiring her third groomer. But she's not breaking even until the last few days of the month. So she's paying 50%, and she wants to know if she should be. Well, then she says she can't give them anymore. We're not asking you to give them anymore. No. Kelly, we're not asking you to do that.
No, you're going to give him less.
You're going to give him less, yeah. Mm-hmm. And to consider bringing in the bather. Yeah, I mean, if you keep hiring, the thing is like at this point, you just hired, or you're in the process of hiring a third groomer. Maybe instead of a groomer, now you should be hiring your bathing assistant.
Yes, and then what happens is those bath dogs, okay, so whatever percentage of bath dogs she has, and I'm hoping that she has a percentage of bath dogs. Do you have a percentage of bath dogs?
So yeah, when you say, when you say bath?
Short-haired dogs. Short-haired dogs. Is she paying 50% for that?
I don't know. Let's find out. Yes, she does.
Oh, ouch.
I actually do I only have one groomer, and I just, I want to keep her happy. She's amazing. And she's like, yeah. For me, I'm like, if she was watching, I'm like, Kathy, she's been with me 10 years. I was just like, Kathy shows up every single day. Kathy can pretty much do whatever she wants. But yeah, I think Kelly, since you're just starting out, you can make some changes. So yeah.
Yeah. So what happens now is that she brings in a bather. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they teach the bather how to bathe their dogs and give them the quality that they want, for baths. And she'll reduce the percentage that they're getting, on those dogs that this bather's bathing for them. But that's going to enable them to do another dog. And also the bather will eventually be the one that's responsible for finishing, not in the beginning, unless they're an experienced bather, finishing those bath dogs.
So they'll begin to learn the prep.
Yes.
What we're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. And even if you paid the bather hourly, it's still only going to be like a 25% payout at the most for like a lab or something. It might even be less than that. Mm-hmm. Because if you get a bather that can be really good and really efficient, they're going to do a lab really quick, and your payout's going to be at the most 25%. Mm-hmm. So then you can keep your groomers for their grooming dogs if they did the dog from start to finish, but you have to set that path so that they could see, well, wait a second, maybe I'm only making 40% on that dog that the bather did, but now I can add a dog. So it comes out to be more. You have to do the math for them because they need to see the math of what it will look like. And that's where that success path comes in.
Yeah. And in the beginning too, about when the groomer is, because we've done this in the past where the groomer is going to train the bather. We as a business don't take any we give a commission, we give the full commission still to the groomer because they're training. In some instance, we even give them a little bit more of a bump, like a training little bonus to just so that they're motivated and have a little bit of excitement to be wanting to train this person because it's worth their time to make a change to their normal routine. So we eat that cost as a business because in the end, again, it's like what we talked about earlier with the training with Danny about if you should pay your team or not to watch these training videos about learning how to handle dogs. It's that's an investment in your business you want to make. So absolutely pay them to watch the videos so that they're feeling like you value their time too. And so I believe in that, but same thing here. You want to pay your groomer to be training the bathers. And set a time frame on that, have it laid out real clear exactly how long they're going to be training and then at what point, what happens after that when the dog is out of training, when the person's out of training, what their commission's going to change to.
Exactly. And you're just going to adjust that, but you need to map it out for them because verbally they're going to be a mess. The average groomer would be a mess. They wouldn't be able to figure it out. They wouldn't be able to do the math in their head. And all they're going to hear from your conversation is that they're going to hear, even if you're not saying this, that they're making less money.
Yeah.
So when you map it out for them and you explain that this is, hey, we're going to start working as a team. You are going to be so happy about this. But this is, and there's going to be some speed bumps here, but this is what it's going to look like, and eventually this is what you're going to be able to accomplish. Because if you think of the normal grooming path, it's just this dead end road. It's like with you have one groomer, she shows up every day, she does the dogs from start to finish, but then, and I'm sure she's happy, but most businesses want to get people that are going to be there longevity wise, and you want to start offering more to them, but without the profits, you can't afford to pay health insurance or anything like that without changing, what's happening a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had okay. So then, I know we're over our time here. Beth, are you still okay to keep talking for a minute? Okay. Yeah. So when I start to think about, and I think again speaking from my own experience, but I kind of feel like when one person has this experience, a lot of people might have it too. Part of me loves the 50% no matter what the dog is, because it makes payroll so much easier. So when I have to go and do payroll, I was like, all right, I just pull the grooming report from my one groomer. She gets 50% of everything, and then it's all figured out. So is there, when you're talking about now, I know that you said the bather is going to be on an hourly, and are they all on an hourly rate?
No.
You're saying percentages. So do you have does your software system that you're using to book reservations already allocate the percentages for that they get?
Yeah, there's
clerically manage this.
There's quite a few. We have a few things. We have like a ticket that goes with the dog that whoever does the whatever, if it's somebody bays it, they fill that in, and then that comes up at the end. And then that gets put into our software, which calculates the percentages for everybody. There's quite a few programs that do calculate different types of percentages for the groomers. So that's something that everyone would have to talk, to their individual companies about. But sometimes, that you're right, that management can be difficult, but there's ways around that.
Yeah.
There's ways to figure that out. And we basically just had somebody's husband made up this working spreadsheet of all of our percentages.
Okay.
And, we just input everything in there and it tabulates the percentages, and that's it. We get what's owed to everybody.
Nice.
But
cool. Okay. So there's some jokes going on here. I love it. Christina's like, if I just reduce their percentages, and now I go back and tell them I'm bringing in a bather, I feel like I should just jump in a grave right now. And then Kelly jumps in and she says, my groomers would dig my grave.
Yeah, and they're absolutely right. And I think it gives us an opportunity to let's almost do homework on this. I'm going to work on clarifying that job path for everybody. And so that you could put it into your little resource area so that they see, okay, this is what I have to do. Because they're absolutely right. If they went in and said, oh, by the way, we're going to change things up and we're going to lower the percentages, and oh no, it would be a disaster. So I think all the things that need to lead up to that to make it successful, it's almost like let's really clarify that for everybody that was here tonight and for people jumping on in the future. Yeah. And almost give them a success path of this is what you need to do so that you can work your way up to this. And I promise once they're there, it's a really good thing. And the groomers, I don't think anyone in my shop would tell you that they're not happy with that, especially the groomers that are getting older. They love it. They will go back there if they have to, and do the hard stuff, but they want to do the easy stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then, and then what happens when, I'm only thinking of it because you just kind of mentioned it or referenced it. So what happens when that bather doesn't show up and they're used to it now, and then they're like, I have to bathe the dog?
No, they're good about it, but they almost, they appreciate. Yeah. Then they're not so quick to judge having to train, a bather or something like that.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, one last question. We're gonna take one last question, then we have to let Beth go. But I promise you guys, I will bring her back for you. And I love that she's already offered to give us some of her material. And Beth, I'm secretly like already thinking that I need to talk to you about how do we just get all of it, and I'll compensate you for it.
No, we're
That to become like the mini franchise of Planet Pooch inside there. So
no, see, these people have a special place in my heart because I get it. Like I've survived everything that they either are going to go through or are going through. So. Yeah. I will be happy to help them.
Yeah. And I love to when so we'll take this last question here real quick, and then I'll wrap up here. So Teresa says the pay structure is shifting to hourly, and every business coach I have ever had has said your payroll should be 30 to 35% of revenue, because you then have to add in the cost like taxes, workers' comp, benefits, marketing to keep the business going. If you're giving an employee 50% to do a job and then pay all those expenses, you make no profit. So
she's absolutely right.
Absolutely
right. And that's where you're gonna drop your percentages drastically on your easy button dogs. Mm-hmm. You're going to adjust your percentages for all around, but they won't really notice it that way. When you map it out, it doesn't look so painful. And you're also going to add additional services that are high profit, and they're going to be higher profit for you, but they're not. That price doesn't get wrapped in. So if you add if you're paying your bather $10 or $12 an hour, and you add a $15 teeth brushing or a $10 teeth brushing or a $5, that bather's not making any more money, but you are.
Yeah,
and that grooming price doesn't reflect the now extra $10 for the teeth brushing. Mm-hmm. So add-on services are huge in getting your profit, that balance, and also your easy button dogs. So
okay, I have one last question. It's coming now. Tips. How do they all split the tips?
They all pool the tips and
in an equal division?
No,
okay.
No. We have a 30-day hold on new people because people come and go. And then after 30 days, then they get 40%, and then it goes to 50% and 60%, and they don't go to full until they're fully prepping. Like once they get to a full prep level, then they're at full level.
You divide the tip for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Cool. I love it. Well, okay, so the reason that what I was going to just say now is that what I love about your generosity and being here tonight and so open is that, you and I, we met. I got to tell a funny story real quick. So we were both at an event recently. And I literally left Super Zoo and I flew to Toronto, and I was like, I was just insanity. And I'm like walking like by the bathroom or something, or near the bathroom, and this woman, which was you, comes like kind of coming out of the bathroom, and then you're like, "You're here!" And you were like so excited to see me, and you were like, "Candace!" And you even said, you were like looking at my name tag. You're like, "Who is this girl? Who is this lady?" And I was like, "Hi!" And you're like, "I didn't know if you'd be here after Super Zoo." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I post on social media," because I still have those times where I'm like, "So how does she know I was just at Super Zoo? I'm in Toronto, Canada. I don't know who this woman is." And then it was so funny. You're like, I'm getting you for lunch. We are going to go to lunch together. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't know who this person is. And she's like cornering me for lunch. And then you were like, don't even worry about it. I think you could tell that like I was kind of confused on what was happening or tired, but you're like, don't even worry about it. I'm in your community. And then I'm in your list. I'm in your community. And I thought, okay. And so then you left, and then you messaged me, and I thought, oh, we're Facebook friends. And then I looked you up in our computer, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I know Beth and Planet Poodle. And so I recall us having conversations in the past. But what was interesting is that we ended up being able to spend a lot of time together. And I immediately was like, wow, Beth is a rock star, and she's a giver, and her ideas. And what I loved too is that you were very much like, this grooming industry needs a shakeup, and we have to start doing things differently. And I said to you, I was like, you should go and start speaking in the grooming industry. And you're like, I don't know. It still kind of feels like it's almost like maybe your opinion and my opinion. I have a lot of the same beliefs that you have. And when it comes to business and company culture, that maybe even some of that isn't going to be heard. They're not ready to hear it in a sense. It's not ready to be adapted yet. And so I love that, at least for us, I hope that that we want your ideas here, and we would love to have your continued support, however you want to provide it for our community, because you're right. People that are invested in a program like this want to succeed. They want to become better. So I just thank you so much for.
Well, I love that, and it's true, because I just came back from Groom Expo this past weekend, and I did a really neat thing. I rented an Airbnb for my whole staff, and it was so amazing. And I've never done anything like that. But it was really interesting, because when I was there, I was like not my normal, on fire self. And I was just like, wow, I said to like my main girl that, has been with me for a long time, I was like, wow, I can't describe how I'm feeling right now. I said, I'm not on fire about being here, and like even people that I should be talking to. And you hit it perfectly. It's because the industry's broken and it does need to change. So what I get on fire about is like tonight, because I know your people are listening, and some of them might be totally confused, or some of them might be fearful, but we'll get over that and we'll get through that together. And that's where I know that I could help. But I'm not ready to talk to people that don't want to listen. Mm-hmm. So I want to be available to people that want help and need help. And I am totally open to sharing, because I want everybody to succeed. And it's not really that difficult if so little things people could do to set themselves apart. Like I said, build your audience, build your community of raving fans. What other groomers are doing that? Nobody. Nobody's doing that. A couple, like a few. So start with that, and everyone here will have tremendous success. It won't be without a little pain, but everyone will have tremendous success with their groomers.
Yeah, I love Jen chimed in. She says, this has inspired me so much, and she's not even a groomer. So thank you for bringing fire tonight. So thank you guys. And again, this has been recorded. The replay will be reloaded in the club portal. Give me about 48 hours, but it will get there. And Beth, thank you again so much. And
thank you. I loved it.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.